Learn all about living at Lake Chapala, Mexico. From Expat Michael Nuschke in this video interview with expats in Mexico. So was weather the reason why you decided to move to Mexico?
Well, not really. That story is kind of interesting. My brother, I have two older brothers. My one older brother decided to go to medical school, and even though he lived in the United States, he was kind of late in the game in applying. And so at that time, it was very hard to actually get admitted to a medical school in the United States. But in Guadalajara, you could actually apply and get admitted to medical school. It's a very high level of training. In fact, the credits transferred from the U.S. and Mexico back and forth. In other words, whatever you did in Mexico were applied as if you were taking it in the United States, same level of training. So he was able to start here and went through medical, or about 2/3 of medical school in Mexico. Actually wound up marrying a Mexican woman. And then moving back to, actually it was New York City, and finishing his schooling and internship actually in New York. And he was in big demand because he could speak Spanish. Of course, there's a large Hispanic population there. So while he was here, while he was at Guadalajara going through medical school, my other brother, my father, and myself came and we visited, and we had a grand, about a 9-day tour, rented a car, and with my brother being able to speak Spanish, we just went, we went to the pyramids north of Mexico City, Teotihuacan, and we went down to Zihuatanejo. We actually drove across the mountain range at night, which is not recommended. And that was fun. And then we actually wound up visiting here at Lakeside. So that was when the hook was set for me. It was like, wow, this is pretty interesting, because it was an already expat were started, being here. They've been, expats have been around Lakeside, I think, for probably 70 years. And I thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. Now it's still a financial planner. And so when I got back to Nova Scotia, I looked for opportunities to actually somehow get into that, and so I took up and started training in expat consulting, and found a company called Canadian International Consultants, which actually had Canadian financial planners fly to different countries around the world where Canadian expats lived. And so I convinced them to try me for Mexico, even though I had no connections really, and I had no family. I knew very little, but I was able to convince them to use me to be the advisor for Mexico. So they would fly me to Mexico City and Guadalajara, and then here at Lakeside, in order to do seminars for Canadians mostly, who were thinking of becoming permanent, expats in Mexico. And so that's where I kind of learned my ropes of, how that works. I was kind of thrown into the water in doing it, and that's also how I started to get clients at Lakeside. And so in one of those trips here, just to visit clients to Lakeside, to Lake Chapala area, I came across Focus on Mexico, and that's kind of how I started to gravitate towards moving to Mexico.
And what is Focus on Mexico?
Focus on Mexico. Well, it actually started 27. I was just looking this up. It started 27 years ago. It was a Canadian couple that moved here, that started a educational program. At that time, I think it was either 8 or 10 days long. People would fly in, and they would do a complete educational program, all speakers from all over, and then tours all over the place. And that program still is basically what I took over. My wife and I took over about 6 years ago now, and maybe 7 years. But it still exists, and so we're kind of standing on that program that had been in existence for 20 years, or almost 20 years when we took it over, and so it's been one of the most well-known and respected educational programs, I think, around. you can actually almost always run into people who've gone through the Focus on Mexico program. Now, Ray and Marie, the couple that moved here, took that on and continued to offer that program for several times a year, sometimes like 8 or 10 times a year, and basically I started becoming a speaker, one of their speakers, because I found Focus and I said, do you need a speaker on retiring in Mexico? That's kind of what I was trying to get into. And they said yes, but it happens to be we just lost our financial person, and so yes. So I started to be a speaker with Focus on Mexico, and did that for a few years. I think I started being a speaker back in 2010, as my best guess, and then did that for a few years. Still living in Halifax, but I would fly down occasionally for the programs. Other times we do it on Skype. They would actually have me on Skype, and they'd pipe it into the training room for my talk. But that's how I kind of gradually got used to being and thinking about what would it be like to actually live here. So my wife and I, my wife came with me one time, and we actually decided, during that trip, that this is really an amazing place, and so we decided to move here.
When did you officially move full-time to the Lake Chapala area?
Well, I'm still not really full-time, because we still go back to Nova Scotia for several months of the year. But I would say now our only home is here, and we actually rent when we go back to Nova Scotia. So that was about 8 years ago that we bought a house, but we were renting for, I think, 4 years here before that. So we would come down and rent for a few months, and then go back, and then we finally decided, okay, we're spending more time here, is buy a house. So we bought the house about 8 years ago, and haven't looked back. So now, what's interesting with the Focus on Mexico, and having talked to the original founders about all the people that have come through it, literally thousands of people have come through this program, that they had a statistic which I found hard to believe, but I actually then started to see it, that about 30% of the people who would come through the program would actually buy a house during the program, which is like mind-blowing, or like they would come a week early, and then they'd be here, and then they might, stay a little longer, and they would wind up buying a house. And I thought that was incredible. That's like amazing, because as a financial planner, I always say you really probably should rent for a year or two and make sure, at least rent for 6 months to make sure that this is the right decision. But as a financial planner, but of course that's not how all people think. So I had to kind of realize there's different types of people as to their decision making when it comes to moving to a different country. And in some cases I found it was the phenomenon that I kind of discovered by experience, is that some people actually can only think about buying a house. It's almost like they have to kind of make their mark to make the commitment, and that mark for them is buying a home, and it's like a different thinking process. To me, it's kind of foreign. I would personally never do that, but I would say about a third of the people that we've come across decide like that, and maybe they've done this before. In fact, I would say 3/4 or more of the people that we've seen come through the Focus on Mexico program have international travel in their background, and so it's not like they're totally clueless about what it means to move to a different place.
What are these people looking for in your program, and do you also find that there's some commonality in the backgrounds of the people that sign up for the program?
Yeah, as I said, I think the commonality background-wise is most people have already traveled, but there are, I would say, up to a quarter of the people that some have never been to Mexico, but quite a few haven't been to Lakeside, Lake Chapala area before. But I would say the top reasons are not surprising. It's weather is a big one, cost of living, culture, the people, and just I'd say a sense of adventure, And so people that have travel in their background, I think, are a different lot of people than the average. So in order to, there's a lot of people that I'm sure people listening to this know, they would never even think about moving to a different, they might think about moving across town or in the state they're in, or but moving to a different country is so foreign that it's like, what are you must be from outer space. So there's that kind of people that would never think about moving beyond their kind of zone of comfort. And then there's the other people that have done this, either sometimes by a job or by military or by other means, or visiting friends and or vacationing, and realize, hey, we could live here. And that those people are more open to that sense of adventure and not needing to kind of hold on to the reference points of home. So I think those are different types of people. So when you look at people who are willing to do that, I think you're getting a more open-minded, interesting type of person who's willing to do that. That's my feeling. So that's one of the reasons I think people find it easy, because everybody's kind of in the same boat, and in one sense, they've all got somewhat of a sense of adventure. And with that commonality, it's easy to make friends. It's easy to move here. So that was my observation over a period of years.
Are a lot of these people travelers who have been to Mexico a lot and have gone to various areas and then finally made a decision that probably Lake Chapala is the area that I'd like to live in, and maybe we need to find out a little bit more about it before we go? And so your program basically offers them the opportunity to talk to different experts in their fields, real estate, law, etc., accounting, whatever their needs are, medical professions, etc. So is that kind of what happens there?
Yeah, I'd say we're kind of the ultimate due diligence program. And so, now our program is, when we do a live program, it's 6 days, but now we're doing online programs in the current pandemic conditions, which is going quite well. We're getting very good feedback because we're using the same formula, that we developed over that long a period. But yeah, people are using the Focus on Mexico program, even though there's so much information available online, to put it together and then feel confident about it. Moving to a different country, it's not like you do that every day. So it's a fairly big project with lots of moving parts, and you want to make sure you haven't missed something. So I would say almost everybody, even though we've had people that are like true researchers, online researchers, they probably have catalogs of information that they've collected. Even that kind of person will come through our program and say, I'm so glad I did this, because I learned so much that I didn't know that I should know. And part of that is just kind of the interactive live experience with talking to experts and being able to actually ask questions and getting replies. And then, of course, you hear other people's questions. That helps people. And so it's also true that people learn in different ways. Some people can just read articles or read books and then move and figure it out. Other people really benefit by a group learning experience like what we offer. And there's other learning, ways. So I don't think, Focus isn't like, it's not like it's for everybody, but it's for people who actually enjoy a small group learning experience, and also the social interaction with people who are going through the process at the same time, whether that's online, which we actually do Zoom calls and people are able to connect with each other. And we also do private Facebook groups for people that are going through our program, so they can continue to connect afterwards. But I say those kinds of people like to connect with other people, and they like to see the experts face to face. They want to hear it from the mouth of experts. And so it's in some sense, I wonder, did you really learn much? And surprisingly, yes, almost everybody who's gone through the program, even those that have done a vast amount of research, that I picked up so much, I didn't know how valuable this would be. So we have that kind of feedback by the dozens or hundreds of people having gone through the program.
How much does it cost for your program?
Yeah, so currently we've switched to an online version. We're calling it the Move to Mexico Roadmap. And we've divided up the process of moving to Mexico in 9 key steps. So we take people through this kind of roadmap, and they're developing their own kind of action plan as I go through this. And then what we're doing is doing two Zoom calls a week, so two classes a week. They're about an hour each. And then we have learning guides with each of those 9 steps that helps them, with additional information. And then we have kind of bonus material, videos of other talks on this topic or articles of interest. So it's pretty complete program. So the cost of that online program right now, we have one starting on February 15th. But we'll be doing another one in April, I believe, and at least another 1 or 2 for the rest of 2022. The cost of that is $490 US. When we do our 6-day live programs, if we ever get back to that, which we keep thinking it'll be soon, and then the pandemic throws in us another curve, we're hoping that by maybe the fall of this year, maybe things will be clear enough. I personally don't really want to organize group events during this period because of the spread it's just not, to me, it's just not something I want to get into. So at some point there'll be it'll be safe to go back in the water, so to speak, and I think that we'll reintroduce the 6-day programs, and those are the cost of that is $790, and that's an actual 6-day event here at Lakeside. People stay in a hotel, and we go out for excursions, and we do tours, and then we bring in the expert speakers during the mornings, and then we go out and do something, exploratory. So that's the program we would like to get back to, but I'm a little bit reluctant to do it, until the coast is clear on the pandemic side, whenever that is. If you can tell me, that'd be great.
Well, you must love living there. I mean, if you're promoting the Lake Chapala area, you must love it. So where do you live in the Chapala area?
We're actually in San Antonio Tlayacapan, which is a town just between, on the way towards Chapala from Ajijic, but it's like the next big town from Ajijic towards Chapala. There's quite a few towns along the northern shore of Lake Chapala, and in fact, I would say, Ajijic is getting a little bit crowded, and so a lot of people are looking at moving to the towns outside and coming into Ajijic when they want to do something socially or restaurants, whatever. But it's really, it's a gorgeous area. Every time I come back, to Lakeside, there's like a hill you go over, and you actually you see the lake, and it's like, okay, we're back. It's incredible. I mean, you have the lake, which is massive. It's something in the order of 15 miles across and 50 miles long. It's like a sea. It's massive. And then you have the mountains, the Sierra Madre Mountains, right behind us. So a lot of the housing would be on a rise towards the mountainside, and the views are just spectacular. Or go to restaurants that are situated on the hill, and it's just kind of breathtaking. So the scenery of the lake as a background is always something that lends itself to the beauty of the place. But of course, it's being in Mexico with the culture and the people and the food, and here the weather is unusually good. And so we have, somebody said that they saw an article on National Geographic saying this area has the second best weather in the world. I've yet to find that reference, but it is true. It's a nice, the weather is definitely one of the top reasons people come here, because we're 5,000 foot altitude, and so we have a drier climate, and and you pretty much don't get into the super hot temperatures during the summer. And there is a rainy season here, but it pretty much gets sunny every day. It rains at night, and it usually gets sunny in the daytime. But weather-wise, it's just spectacular. So it's that's a big reason. I have to say, though, I don't really feel like I'm promoting Lakeside. I'm enabling people who want to move to Lakeside to do it right, and to do it without making major errors.
Well, Michael, as the Lake Chapala expert, what are the 3 things that you love most about living there?
Geez. It's weather has to be one of them. I'll be playing tennis later today, And if I was still in Nova Scotia, I'd be battling, minus, sub freezing temperatures and kind of blowing snow. So it's like, wow, it's so night and day here that weather-wise, it's just spectacular to be able to live outside for most of your life. Even in this hot summer, outside living is still a thing here. Most people don't even have air conditioners because they don't really feel they need them, nor do they have furnaces. So cost of living is quite reasonable here because you're not having to pay for either air conditioning or heating. And of course, the housing prices have been climbing, but they're still under most places in the U.S. And the cost of living, like property taxes being like maybe $150 a year, or it's like we thought it was a typo when we first came across it. You mean a month? No, a year. So it's like cost of living is definitely one of the big ones. So basically, cost of living, as a retirement planner, people mostly focus on their income and their assets and their investments. But just as important is the other side of the balance sheet, which is your expenses. And if you can lower your expenses by 30 or 40 or 50%, it opens up a whole other realm of possible life in terms of I could retire earlier or I could do more with my life. And so, or some combination of that. So I think, being able to enjoy life and do more with that and explore a very interesting culture, learn a new language. These are all things that are good for just being healthy and having a good life, wherever you are, whether it's Mexico or some other place.
Good. Michael, thank you so much for your time today. You're a fount of information.
Bob, good to talk to you, and good to meet you in PV when we were there. So I look forward to talking to you again.